So you mentioned script writing, and that's one thing I've noticed that, especially in the practicum class, because we didn't really talk much before that, but
No.
you've written and produced some pretty funny comedy sketches from what I've seen. I just going off my list, we got Mumblecuts, Ghouls Get Gone, Don't Be That Guy. Did you have anything to do with the Nigerian Prince sketch we
No,
did?
that was actually all Maddie. I had nothing to do with that. I did like help rein him in a few times because I didn't help with the B-movie part. I don't know where the fuck he came up with that. I don't know what his obsession was. But yeah, like Mumblecuts, that was actually a really fun time. The first time that I actually worked together with a bunch of those people was during like Mumblecore, and that's when I really feel like I got my footing, besides like me just being a very loud personality and just like talking shit. But I think like that's when people were like, oh, like, yeah, she can kind of write and she's pretty funny too.
Definitely, yeah, I really enjoyed, especially Ghouls Get Gone with that comedy class. I really liked that one.
That was nuts. That was like...
What else can you say?
It was like it was made in one night. It was written, directed, we shot it all in one night. We had to calm Eric down, walk him off the ledge a few times. We got his former girlfriend, we got her to agree to like be the ghost, which was in and of itself. She was like, I want to be on camera. We're like, good, you don't have to be.
You have a sheet over your head.
Yeah, we're like, you're fine. And Barry was a lot of fun. He really was the glue. He kept us all sane. And then Bart, he was just such an excellent actor. I'm glad so many people have worked with him. Like,
yeah, Barry and Bart are like the two like go-to people I found in our year, especially. Like anytime you want to like really make something the best that it possibly can be, you add Barry and Bart.
They're reliable and they like knew what they're doing, and like Barry's just a saint and Bart's so funny. Like just the two of them, they're just great to work with. It was a lot of fun, but very stressful and very silly. And I'm glad it really came together because we were really worried that like, just because it was so rushed and so last minute, like sometimes that can turn out a lot worse than you think it does.
Right.
Like you're like, oh, this looks great at the time, and then you're like sitting there editing it and you're like, wow, like I forgot, like how did he get into this room, or like you see the magical floating like coffee cup or like something stupid like that. But
yeah,
I
find that I find that in a lot of almost anything that you do, no matter how well you've planned it out and like how much you've paid attention to like consistency, whether that be in the way things are like blocked out or the way or where certain characters are. I think that it's kind of inherent that we all hate our own work at one point or another, and then we put it out and people are like, oh, it's not that bad, and then we get our egos built back up, and then the cycle just keeps on
the
repeating.
trope of being an artist, just like self-loathing but still produce. That's the like struggle, is like self-loathing and like keeping producing stuff, especially now that we're all out of college, because like some of us do struggle with like either, well, even you, like you're in a creative field, but that still takes like time away from like your personal projects. Like thankfully you still have time to do stuff like this, and like I'm grateful to do something creative also and get out of the house.
Well, thank you for coming on to help me make something creative. It's not the first time. You did help me with the box, and that was a really cool. You stepped up at like basically the last minute. The actress, I won't get too much into it, but for one reason or another, the actress who was originally going to do it backed out. I think the like day of, or might have been the day before, and I just kind of put out this like last ditch thing where I was like, oh, if anyone can sacrifice an afternoon, please. I'm kind of desperate here, and you really stepped up and helped me out. So
no, it's no problem.
Belated thank you for that.
No, I've always wanted. I regret not working with a lot of people I was there, because there were a lot of people I wanted to work with. Like I did wanted to work with you more. There's another boy too. Were you in Mae Johnston's scriptwriting class?
No, I wasn't.
No, what was his name? His name was like Zach or something.
Zach Esposito?
Yeah, he was a really good writer, I remember. Like, I remember he had some really good, like, he had a really good PSA. That's, like, the weirdest thing to remember. But, like, he really did. He had a really good PSA, I remember, because, like, Johnston just kept talking about it, and, like, he had these really good visuals, because he, like, I knew it was going to be good, because I remember he said something about, like, there's, like, Fairly Odd Parents on the TV, and I was like, like that boy pays attention to detail, and he likes cartoons, so I'm like, he knows his shit.
Yeah, I think he's also he's been doing like a lot of music stuff lately with like a band. I think because I follow some of the people who are still in schools Instagram and the people who run Mic Check, for those who don't know, like that was like the music featured like student show that we not like but like we as a school helped make.
Yeah.
And I think that he like was on. I haven't listened to any of the music, but I remember him being like, "Oh, good to be back," and sharing stuff like that.
Oh,
so.
like a reunion, like he came back after graduation.
Yeah, he came
That's
back to be on Mic Check. Yeah.
I wonder who's doing that now.
I think actually it might be. I had her on earlier, Heather Hamilton. I don't know if you're familiar with her.
I know her. I've never spoken to her, but I know exactly who you're talking. I recognize her because she was one of those younger. She was one of the younger. I don't think she's that much younger than us, is she? Probably.
No, she's a junior now, so she would have been.
She would have been a freshman
when we graduated.
So she was little then. Yeah, I'm not exaggerating.
Okay, but yeah, no, I don't know if she's doing it. I remember someone shared something because I think she does NBS.
Yeah, I always get the
yeah,
email.
I don't know. It's someone at Kutztown shared
She's
something.
the new Liz.
And yeah. That's so. Point being, there's so many guesses. You think it was Zach, and I think that he was on Mic Check at one point. Yeah,
no. Now that you said his name, I know it was him that was writing.
Okay. Right. No, but yeah, it's point being, I guess it's great that even after graduation, there's still this collaborative energy floating
that's
around.
So cool. Like I love that.
Yeah. So you mentioned you did your internship with Intrinsic Value Films for script writing, which you just said before we started recording. They're famous for that Trick or Treat, and which is a fantastic Halloween movie. Killer. If you haven't seen that, by the way.
Yeah, those are like their two big ones I saw on their website. He was really fun, Joe Lagara. He was super great. He was very animated over the phone. He always wanted us to have questions. He was very excited to talk. He even like indulged my like weird drag obsession because like I mentioned it, and he's like, "Oh yeah," he's like, "I have a few scripts that are like drag related." Like he totally like indulged and like was really willing to like teach and like hear what we have to say and also like discuss. And like he was very into like talking the talk, like getting like slick like language wise with like the industry and stuff like that. I didn't have a lot of good questions about that. I was mostly just like, how do I make it?
Right.
I was like, please, just like, where do I go from here? But it was a lot of fun. They also have an LA base, and then they took on 2 of us at a time, so it was very intimate. It was a lot of like, because we did just did conference calls because it wasn't in person. Like he's based in New York and he just like sends it out to us, but like he did spend a lot of time like talking to us on the phone, and like he even called before like the internship began and like explained the process and explained like the treatment that he was going over. He's like, this is what I want, this is what I don't want, like don't put like I statements and stuff like that. So it's just like very basic, but it was a lot of fun. And
so what did you kind of do? Was it like just a lot of like reading what people would bring in and editing it and giving notes to him, or? Yeah,
a lot of it was just sounds just like what you think it would be. You get a script. We got like every Monday we got it, and then it was due like Friday. So we had like maybe like 4 days to do it, and basically you just kind of like read through the script. You established like he was very into like log lines. He thinks that's like the strongest point. And he recommended a book called How to Save the Cat.
I haven't read it. It's literally on my shelf right now.
But
it's from what I hear, it's a great book on screenwriting.
It is. I've read like half of it so far, and it's a great book on screenwriting because like it teaches you the realities of it, like sort of thing. Like if you want to write a blockbuster movie, like you want to sell scripts, that's the guy like you talk to. Like he's like, you have to have a great log line, and he's like, it has to be sellable. Like I remember, what was one of the big, he mentioned this, Legally Blonde. He thought Legally Blonde was one of the best like film titles ever. Like he thinks title is very important because they could have gone like a lot of stupid ways. Like they could have been like Barbie Goes to Harvard, or like it could have been very stereotypical. So it's very based on like his first impressions matter,
right? And
that log line, that needs to sum up, like you can't just be like, well, it's about this guy and he does this thing. It has to be like, no, like military veteran takes out robot army to save daughter.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like sum it up as quick as you can, which is important in script writing, because it's like, say it, don't tell, like show us, don't tell us, and say it as small as possible.
Yeah. That's what we had. Did you have Cliff Neal for anything when he was there? Or
yeah, I had. Neil's a homeboy.
Did you ever? Did he do the thing with you when we had that project where you had to pitch, like you had to pitch your final project as if it were like a show or whatever, and he would do that like New York persona? Like, did he do that with you?
The game show persona, or
like the hey, so give me your log line, okay?
No,
like he was really like abrasive. It was so much fun. But he said this one thing that always stuck. No, he said this one thing that always stuck with me about where he's like in that persona. He goes, if you don't go binga banga boomo with your log line, the guy will tell you bye bye. And it was like, Neil was he's such a great guy. I still talk to him from time to time, and he was one of the best professors I ever had. That whole department was full of great professors. Looking back on it, I guess getting a little bit more broad in like the grand scheme of like movies. I know you said that script writing is something that you're really fond of, or not, like that's kind of in line with what you would ideally want to do as a career. Yeah. So do you have any script writers that you look up to as like, oh man, that's like the golden standard of what I want to aspire to be, or any personal favorites you might have? Or
I have a lot that I enjoy. I really enjoy John Carpenter, and I really enjoy I watched a documentary about like Halloween, how like it first came about, and I admired that he was really honest about how much his girlfriend helped him through with it at the time, because I thought that was one of the most impressive things about Halloween, was just like like how natural it was. Because sometimes you see, like, maybe it's because I'm a woman also, but like I remember watching, like, trying to get into American Horror Story. So I watched the first season, and there's that scene where like Violet's at school, and just the dialogue between those two girls, I was like, they've never talked to a woman before, have they? I was like, I'm like, they were born from an egg. They've never had contact with anybody. Like, sometimes it turns out so cringy like that. Right. And like for someone to take care and to take direction and sort of like mold this universe where there's not really a lot of answers. Like, there's no real, like, direction. Like, it's sort of just babysitter. Then it just sort of, like, gets uncomfortable. There, yeah, like, it gets uncomfortable, and this, like, tension's building, and before you know it, people are dropping like flies. And you're like, why is this happening? Why is this happening? And unfortunately, there's a bunch of other movies to explain. Right. There's, like, 7 other Halloween films to explain why it's happening. But it doesn't capture that magic of when, like, you're helpless and like you're just sort of like a passenger and just watching this unfold in front of you, where you can't help, or like like the police don't help even. Like it's established in that universe that like police can't help, big guys can't help, like a gun can't help. Like, what is this unholy black magic?
I don't remember if I ever told you, I actually got the chance to meet John Carpenter a few I want to say back in over the summer. Kind of a tangent, but I did ask him not some like specific like screenwriting questions, but one of we can I guess kind of tie this into the writing a little bit, but my favorite movie of his, and definitely my top 5 of all time, is The Thing.
Yes,
I love that movie so much from so many different aspects, but the writing especially in that movie is great, and how namely like the ending, because they had like, I don't know if you know this, but they had like 5 or 6 different endings they were going to go with. And then even beyond that, the ending that they did go with, there were like 4 or 5 different ways that they were going to either add or subtract to the ending that they had. Like there was one, or spoilers if you haven't seen The Thing, you definitely should see The Thing, but they were going to do one where McCready just sort of like passes out in the snow and then roll credits. There was going to be one where you find out one of them is an alien and the other one gets torched. There's going to be one where it's like the next morning and a dog runs away from the wreckage onto like whatever the next movie would be. But I think the ending that they settled on is so perfect and like such a great way to end a horror movie like that. And I asked him specifically, I had this chance where he was doing photo ops in front of a replica of the car from Christine. And I got up to him, and after the picture I said really quick, I was like, man, the ending of The Thing is is so ambiguous. Do you even know what happened at the end? And he laughed and he did this like really sly smile and he was like, I do know what happened and I'm not going to tell you. And he waved me on my way. And it was it was such a great experience. But he's a class act. Like, I think that any horror writer should definitely look at him as an inspiration.
Especially like American horror writing. I feel like he really capitalized on like that feel, because like there's an expectation I have with American horror, and like I guess over the years it has changed, because like in the 70s it was like slasher films, like that's what we thought of when we thought of horror, and like slowly it's kind of like evolved to like more so ghost stories is the theme now. I don't know really why.
Paranormal Activity.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's what I kind of blame that on.
Because we did have like a torture porn phase with like the whole like Saw thing, and then there's like a few other movies that kind of were like, who's gonna like Hostel. Yeah, that was more towards the end. It was torture porn, but there's a cool point where I have a lot of respect for Eli Roth, because he also looks up to Takashi Miike. And Takashi Miike has like a 2-second cameo, cameo in Hostel, and I look forward to it every time. Yeah,
he's both of those are, well, Takashi Miike especially, he's really great. Eli Roth, I'm kind of lukewarm with from time to time.
He's a better producer.
Yeah. He the past few, I think he produced one movie that I really enjoyed that didn't really get a lot of exposure.
Clown?
Yeah, Clown.
I love Clown. Okay.
It's such a guilty pleasure. Like, it's not a perfect movie by any means, but it's perfect in like what it's trying to do.
I think,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, like that's what I mean. I think Eli Roth really understands, like, I think he has a very good eye for American horror, because I think like Cabin Fever, like, yeah, it was stupid. Like really fucking stupid, but there, like, you remember her shaving her legs.
Yeah.
You remember the kid being like fucking pancakes.
That's one of the best like what the fuck moments, to just randomly send someone and be like, what genre is this movie? What genre do you think this is?
That's what it was kind of playing around there, and I like that little like play, because it kind of brought us back to like that Sam Raimi, right. And like Bruce Campbell. Like, I think horror does need, like, especially American horror, you need a little like chuckle. Yeah. You need a little like pokey to like kind of lighten their mood, because at the end of the day we do want to like the villain,
right,
as much as we say we don't want to.
I think that is like a huge often overlooked thing, is that you not necessarily making the villain like understandable, but like identifiable to some way. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that's a bad way of wording it, but I think that like...
No, I think identify, because you could be like, I know that person. I know why they're angry. Like, yeah, my brother was a real hothead like that, or he was a real bitch like that. You know what I mean? Like, kind of revenge. I don't know. We all kind of know someone that's a little darker on the inside.
Right.
Or maybe that's a little off. Or maybe that's us.
It's like, again, going back to John Carpenter, he said like the only two scary story, like there's the two archetypes to any scary story, is that the evil is out there and it's the unknown, or it's the evil in your heart. Yeah. And I think that's kind of very, like, when you really boil it down, that is kind of true of a lot of horror movies. More so these days, the evil being like an external force. But I think one thing that he did very well is kind of playing, even though like when you think of his movies, you got like Christine, Halloween, The Thing. These are all movies, right? Yeah, it's all. There are the evil in that movie is to a pretty major extent an external force, but there's a lot in those movies where it's like about the evil in your heart, about like trying to figure out like, well, at first trying to figure out like, why is Mike Myers so evil, or in the case of The Thing, could this innocent person on the outside be something terrible on the inside? Yeah. And I think he weaves those threads so wonderfully. That
thread of doubt.
Yeah.
And it's just like making us doubt what's going to happen next, which is very like understated anymore. It's not very like people. They throw things at the wall, and then you're just kind of like, but why was that important? It's kind of like how people make fun of, like, M. Night Shyamalan now. It's like, he throws a twist in, and it's like, why was the twist there, though?
Yeah,
or, like, why was the loose end, like, tied up? Like, you already had the story. You had the meat, and then you throw on this, like, little tail.
Or a little extra garnish. That I
can't eat.
Yeah, good point. So I kind of cut you off there. So John Carpenter is a big influence, or like a gold standard for you. Is there any other screenwriters you really admire?
I really do like Lars von Trier also, and then I also like, I can't say his name, but that Greek man who has done Killing of a Sacred Deer, Lobster.
Yorgos Lanthimos.
I think he is brilliant. I think he had like this Grecian tragedy sense about him that I really like. I don't like, especially Killing of a Sacred Deer. That movie really stuck with me, and I thought it was really, I don't want to say fun. It was really uncomfortable. I mean,
he's very good at that. In all of his movies,
it was a little clunky.
Something that's very uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was a little clunky at parts, but like that sense of just being like, just the situation, like, is just a very uncomfortable thought. Like, it's not like a test where there's a right answer. It's like, no matter what, it's sort of like ambiguous and sort of blood on your hands.
Right, especially in that movie. But a lot of, like I said, every movie he's done so far has been like really, whether like uncomfortable to sit through or like uncomfortable to. Like it's either kind of a weird situation where in like the case of The Lobster, it's like putting you in this like really uncomfortable scenario and like really unnerving you, but maybe in the case of The Favorite being like, oh wow, this is really awkward for those characters up there. Isn't it? So that's kind of like a theme like in all his movies. He's I think one of the best writer directors working today.
Yeah,
I'm
like
really
honestly,
excited to see what he does next.
And like just the way he like, it's not even like there are like, he doesn't play on tropes. Like it's not like there's like the nagging husband and like the pretty wife. It's like these very people-centric stories. There's not a lot of external force to them, and it's a lot of like nuclear, like love, like these nuclear moments in our lives where we're supposed to connect with other people, and he kind of like puts up this like weird like anxious wall of like, is it worth it though? Is it like worth it to have these connections and these things? And like that's a true level of horror that I don't think we've seen, especially from that side of the world. Yeah.
He's I have nothing but praise for the guy. It's even ignoring the whole horror aspect, like everything he's done is like so unique in its own weird way, even movie to movie. Like you said, it does have this sort of like theme connecting all three of them, but
they're different.
Right.
They're very different visually.
Yeah.
There's a very different feel. Even like I think the sound, like direct. He's very versatile. He's not afraid to like change from, even that he's only had like a few movies.
I think that three, like The Lobster, Killing a Sacred Deer, and The
but
Favorite.
his style, like his aesthetic, his composition, like it's all been very different. He's shown us very different sides of himself and how to tell a story.
Yeah, he's fantastic.